What's up, gamers? Have you ever heard of the GTA clone called Payback before? Depending on whether you are a greasy millennial or a stone zoomer, your answers will likely vary. For some people, Payback is followed by the number 2, being a free-to-play sandbox game full of explosions and chaos. For other, more cultured gamers, it's that 3D top-down GTA clone on the Game Boy Advance that nobody cared about. But what if I told you that the origin behind this peculiar little game goes back even further than that? Before Payback was running like a slow turd on the Game Boy Advance, it started its life on the Amiga back in 2001. Now you might be thinking, wait a second, wasn't the Amiga already dead by then? Yes, it was.
Amiga 500 computer from Commodore. It's simply amazing.
What is that face?
You won't get a better deal anywhere else.
Wrong. I'm Captain Diamond, and I'll get you bigger packages.
I could use a bigger package. The Amiga was a powerhouse in the late 80s and early 90s, boasting impressive hardware and a fairly competent gaming library, standing as one of Commodore International Corporation's many computer lineups. But by the mid-90s, the Amiga started slipping behind its competition, especially after Commodore went bankrupt in 1994. And by the 2000s, with Nintendo unveiling the GameCube and PlayStation unveiling the PlayStation 2, the Amiga had been mostly forgotten. While most of the world had moved on in 2001, a small but die-hard cult of Amiga fans still existed, particularly in Europe of all places, where fans continued heavily upgrading their computers, desperately trying to keep the platform alive.
Just let me die.
No.
And in the middle of all of this, one man took a look at Grand Theft Auto and said, I can do that, but on the Amiga. Enter James Daniels, the absolute mad lad behind Payback. This one-man developer didn't just set out to make a GTA clone as good as the original, oh no. He was going to make it even better. And to his credit, Payback actually had a better physics engine, dynamic lighting, and reflective water, which if you know anything about the original Amiga, pulling off reflective water on that was basically witchcraft. And the final result? A fully 3D open-world GTA clone with multiple maps and even a 4-player deathmatch mode, receiving very positive feedback from the Amiga community. But here's where things get weird. Payback didn't just stay on the crusty Amiga. Oh no, it got ported to some of the most random systems possible. First, it got ported to the Mac in 2003 before later being ported to the iPhone OS in 2007. And the weirdest port, it got ported to the GP2X, a South Korean handheld that most people outside of emulation circles probably don't even know exists. And somehow Payback still got ported to it. But out of all the weird ports out there that Payback has, the strangest one and probably the most ambitious is none other than the Game Boy Advance version. Because why not put a fully 3D game on a system that was never intended to run 3D to begin with? Sounds like a great idea! Yeah, about that. As if it wasn't hard enough trying to port a fully 3D game onto the Game Boy Advance, Payback also had to be delayed an entire year because the devs couldn't find a publisher for it. Turns out, trying to convince companies to publish a mature-rated open-world crime game on a system known for Mario and Pokemon isn't as easy as they hoped. But finally, in 2004, Payback secured a publisher. And in February of that year, Payback hit store shelves for the Game Boy Advance, but only in Europe. That's right, Payback never got an official US release. The game even got an ESRB rating, meaning at least at one point an American version was planned. But for some odd reason, it just never happened. And as if Payback wasn't already fighting an uphill battle, 7 months later, Rockstar would come in and drop Grand Theft Auto Advance on the GBA, ensuring everyone forgot Payback even existed. And now, almost 24 years later since the original Amiga release, opinions on Payback are extremely polarizing, especially on the Game Boy Advance version. So, which is it? Is it an amazing open-world experience on the Game Boy Advance, or is it a barely playable disaster that just should have stayed buried in Europe? Let's find out! After booting up Payback, we immediately are greeted by a kick-butt rock song that makes you feel like you're back in the 2000s and ready to do something illegal. Once you're done vibing to the intro song, you are greeted by a menu with 3 different gameplay options, that being single player, deathmatch, and rampage mode. The single player mode serves as the main campaign of Payback, consisting of 6 levels across 3 cities. But unlike Grand Theft Auto Advance, Payback is far less linear, with the 6 levels having a very simple formula. All you have to do is earn a certain amount of points in order to be able to progress to the next level. It doesn't matter how you get the points, only that you get them, whether that be literally attacking NPCs on the street, stealing cars, or antagonizing the police. Though the best way to earn points is through accepting missions through the payphones. The missions can vary wildly on what you have to do, whether it be eliminating rival gang leaders, stealing cars, or even doing races. There's even one level where you're just randomly sent to go kill a bunch of KKK guys. Whew, thank God. I might kill people for fun, but at least I'm not a racist. Some missions even have you go indoors to eliminate targets, which is pretty darn impressive for the Game Boy Advance. So at least Payback got one thing right, it's fun being bad. But now that we've covered the good stuff, yeah, that was very little, let's get to the issues of Payback. Let's address the most obvious flaw first. The frame rate. Or should I say lack of? Because it's an absolute slideshow. It's one thing when you're just meandering around the street on foot, in fact it's almost tolerable, but the moment you get inside a vehicle, the frame rate grows to absolute crap, especially during police chases. I get it, it's a 3D game on the Game Boy Advance, but geez guys, this was the best you could do? Aside from the chugging frame rate, there's also glitches like your car disappearing under things. But hey, it might be janky, but at least it controls good. Oh wait, wrong game. Payback's control scheme absolutely sucks. See, when it comes to controlling Payback, you'd think that you'd use the D-pad, pressing up on it to make you move forwards, right? They don't do that. Pressing up on the D-pad actually makes you cycle through your weapons, and pressing down on it makes you cycle down them. So what makes you move forward? Well, that would be the A and B buttons. They make you move forward and back. But the problem is to turn left and right, you have to press on the D-pad. See, here's why this is a problem. Say you're in a gunfight in Payback, holding your trusty shotgun as you get ready to blast some pigs. So you line up your shot and you press the R trigger to fire, but oh no! In the heat of battle, you pressed up on the D-pad accidentally right before firing. So instead of shooting your shotgun, you dropped a grenade at your feet, which is an instant death. Bye-bye! And as if failing a mission in Payback wasn't bad enough, dying in Payback also means you lose your points multiplier, which you can only get through doing missions. The third issue with Payback is the single player experience itself and how it's designed. The first 4 levels are very non-linear and take place across the 2 cities, having you gain around 2 million points and then being able to check out to play the next level. But level 5 is a unique prison escape where you must stealthily escape a prison and drive a boat to the 3rd city of the game, where you must reach a hideout with the police hunting you down the entire time. Points don't matter, and unlike the other 5 levels, this one is completely linear. Level 6 goes back to the formula of gathering points, but for some odd reason it doesn't have the minimap, making navigations and missions way harder since your only guide is the freaking tiny arrow above your car. But while the main campaign of Payback is rather janky and kinda poorly designed, one part about Payback that is actually pretty good is the rampage mode. Rampage mode, as the name suggests, allows you to choose a map and basically just cause chaos for the fun of it. What's strange is, unlike the campaign mode, there's not 3 maps, but 11. Or so I heard. I only ever unlocked 9.
Congratulations, you're a failure.
Some of the maps like Desert Island and Killing Zone are just tiny maps that have been repurposed from the 4-player deathmatch mode, but there are other great maps that are full-sized. Little Chicago is a full city that is rather prone to glitches. Isla Nublar is a narrow-roaded city full of police and winding turns. Woods is basically a larger version of Freedom City, but with lots of trees. And the last one is Tank Zone, a map full of jumps, guns, and tanks, which was honestly probably my favorite map. But what about Payback's music? Well, don't get too excited, because while the intro goes way harder than it needs to, the rest of the songs are a little lacking, and there's only 5 of them total, that being the intro song included. Because of this, you'll probably be hearing the same 3 to 4 songs on loop for 2 hours straight. One critique I have heard about Payback was that some people said that after playing it for long periods of time, the game would give them headaches. And you know what? I think they were onto something. Cause after playing this game for about 2 hours, I got a skull-splitting headache. So after spending way too much time playing this game, what was my final verdict? Well, Payback is a janky, chaotic mess with a surprising amount of content to it, but lacks any real polish to make it truly worth playing on the Game Boy Advance. The amount of content here that Payback has is very admirable, but that doesn't mean much when the game itself feels this rough to play. Now for what it is, a fully 3D open world game on the Game Boy Advance is quite the impressive feat. That being said, I did not like it. It gave me headache. Honestly, go play the Amiga version or literally any other version, because I'm pretty sure this one might be the worst.
Make sure to subscribe.